Good morning, and welcome to the Comics Experience Graphic Novel of the Month Club, the Kids Edition for the month of July. We have a fantastic book to talk about this month. This was Our PACT by Ryan Andrews, published by First Second. This is a really good book. Oddly, I'm here alone in the store today. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a summer vacation or the weather's too nice, or I don't know. But I think it's just going to be me and Ryan talking today. So we'll do that. Before we start, let me thank, as we always do, our sponsor at The Beat, www.comicsbeat.com. Pretty much the best website for comics news and information. That's my opinion, at least. Your opinion may differ, but go and check it out. Hello, Ryan. Good morning. Or good night for you. It's 3 a.m. where Ryan is, and it's 10 a.m. where I am. So that's the lengths that we go to provide comic conversation for you. How are you, Ryan?
Brian.
How's it going?
What's that?
I said, how's it going?
Oh, it's going good.
Yeah.
I'm still awake. I'm alert, so hopefully I'll be able to answer all your questions.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, this is a fantastic book, as I said. It's smart and it's funny and I don't know. There's a lot of charming sweetness to it, and it's incredibly long for a children's book. It's 340 pages, 330, something like that.
What about there?
But let's talk about your career. And my first question always is, why comics? Of all the different things that you could be doing, what is it about comics that works for you?
So I've always been, since I was a kid, coming up with stories, and when I was a kid, really wanted to turn them into animated films. But once I realized the market film, the need to get a team together and pay them, otherwise find people who will stay on a project for a year for free. I just kind of realized that comics would be the best way for me to tell the stories that I wanted to tell, and not have to bow to anyone's whim, just kind of be able to do whatever I want.
Yeah. Did you study art in school? Did you study comics? Did you study animation?
I went to a small school in San Diego called Watts Atelier, where I studied there for about a year. They pretty much just teach the fundamentals of drawing and painting. There's no comics classes or anything like that there. Kind of learned how to do comics by doing comics.
Interesting. Were you, when you went to that atelier, were you planning on doing animation at that point? Did you know you were going to do comics? Where were you at?
No, at that point, so that school really focused on, I did a lot of portraiture and figure drawing, and sort of really wanted to go in that direction. Didn't know how to make money doing that, but that really appealed to me at the time. And then I don't know, I got the travel bug, and I came to Japan and then decided to learn Japanese, and then for whatever reason decided that I wanted to learn how to be a farmer in Japan. So I'd pretty much given up on the art stuff for a couple years, and then one day just started drawing in my sketchbook again, and realized how much I'd missed it, and just decided that I wanted to try my hand at drawing a story, and went for it, and it turned out better than I thought it would, and then it kind of went from there. So I didn't really set out to do comic as an adult. That was more something I wanted to do as a kid, but then as an adult I kind of just came back to it, wondering if I could do it successfully, and it turns out that I was able to do it better than I thought I could. So I kind of stuck with it.
Yeah. The comics that you did just in your spare time, was that what ended up becoming Sarah and Her Seed? And the other one is, I don't remember. Our bloodstained roof, or was that?
Yeah, the first one I did was called Nothing is Forgotten, and that was a wordless comic. I wanted to see if I could tell a story without using any words, just relying on the pictures as sort of a first initial challenge for me. I figured if I could do that, then I could also add words and kind of go and make the stories more complex from there.
Okay. And some of your early work was nominated for an Eisner for Best Digital.
Yeah, Sarah and the Seed and Our Bloodstained Roof, which are two pretty short stories, about 30 pages or so.
Yeah, that had to have been a surprise, I suppose.
Oh yeah, I didn't expect anybody to read my first comic.
Hmm.
Um, I submitted it to an illustration blog back when blogs were a big thing, uh, and they showcased it, and that sort of got my name out there. And that having that initial reaction, having people start to follow me on Twitter and Instagram and stuff um, that was really encouraging, and I think that's kind of what got me to write to keep going. If
Yeah.
nobody had read my first comic, I don't know that I would have kept drawing them with the same energy that I had put into the like Our Bloodstained Roof and Sarah and the Seed.
Hmm.
It might have just been like I'll get around to drawing another comic someday. But having that, hey, when are you going to draw some more? I want to read your next story. Getting that sort of reaction really kind of pushed me to keep
Hmm.
going with it.
Hmm. And at this point, you're still not. Oh, it's such an ugly word, but you're still not monetizing doing comics, right? You're essentially doing them for free.
Well, I was selling my book for a while, but that started to turn into kind of a full-time job. Um, and so I had to just kind of take down my store because it wasn't paying enough for me to live, but it was taking up all my time, so I wasn't able to do other stuff.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, I make I make a little bit from comics, but most of my money comes from freelance illustration. So I do book covers,
Hmm.
and I do a lot of animation backgrounds
Hmm.
for various animation companies.
Okay. Is
So
that
that's
is
sort of my main source of income. Comics, it takes too long for me to draw a book. This took me 4 years,
Sure.
so it's definitely not something I could make a living off of
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
at the
When you
moment.
say you're doing backgrounds for animation companies, is that in Japan or is it
No, it's in the U.S.
okay?
Disney and Nickelodeon and things like that.
Okay. Um, I'm assuming, and tell me if I'm off on this, but I'm assuming that sort of from the nature of your style and the kinds of stories that you're telling, there's not a lot of interest in what you're doing from manga publishers. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything from any publishers out here. But then again, I haven't tried sending my book out to anybody.
Right. Right. Yeah. Interesting. Um,
But sorry, the culture, the comics culture here is so different. Um, I don't know that this book will ever, unfortunately, since I live here and all of my friends are Japanese and they can't read my book. Um, I I'd be surprised if this was published out here just because it would just be too expensive for people out here.
yeah.
Comics here, you read them and typically you throw them away. It's like $2 for a comic book the size of a phone book um, that you read that comes out once a week, and maybe you'll read a couple of those every week, and then when you're done, you just chuck them in the trash.
Yeah.
That's sort of the way comics are here. Some people do collect them; they come out in little tiny books, but even those are only a couple dollars, maybe $3 tops.
Right.
So for somebody to spend, $15 on a comic, it's got to be something by somebody who they really want to have everything that that person's done, you know?
Sure, no, I understand. And most comics in Japan are in black and white, right? There's very little that's being published
Right.
in color.
Yeah, I don't, aside from maybe a couple pages in the front, yeah, most of them are totally in black and white.
Yeah. And I feel like colors are a really important part of your work.
Yeah, for this comic, this is the first one I did in color. Everything else was always in black and white. I always shied away from color just because it wasn't something that I was ever very good at. Uh, so I learned a lot doing this book, going in and having no idea what I was doing with the color, to after doing 300 plus pages, kind of getting a feel for what to do, and then going back and redoing a lot of the earlier stuff. So I had to finish the book and then go back and redo at least probably half of it,
Right.
because I went back and looked at it after having learned so much, realizing, ooh, yeah, this isn't going to work. I got to change this.
So, where did the book come from? Let's talk first as an idea. Like, I feel as though perhaps I'm wrong that this is based upon something in your childhood or some event. Because there feels like there's enough realness to this that it's true, though obviously there's a lot of fiction in it. Was that a bad question? The look on your face, I'm not sure.
Well, thank you. Uh, no, this wasn't really. It's not based on any sort of event in my childhood, but it's inspired by a story, that a movie that I saw when I was a kid. So there's a book. It's about 100 years old. It's a Japanese book, and it's called Night on the Galactic Railroad. And it's about these kids who have this big festival, and then two of the kids, they get on this train and they travel around the galaxy, together, and they meet all these weird characters along the way. And that book was made into an anime in, I think, the 80s, where they took all the characters. All the characters were, I think it took place in Italy, um, but they had all the characters just be cats for the anime for whatever reason. And there was just something about it that really stuck with me when I was a kid, and I watched it again and again and again. And so that story just kind of stuck with me into adulthood. And when I started writing this, I actually started it as an adaptation of that book.
Hmm.
But then, okay, so I was commissioned to do a short story. This was back in 2013, for sort of a collection of web comics that was going to be part of a Kickstarter. And so I had about 3 months to draw it. And so I was going to take like one scene from that book and just draw that one scene. But then, I don't know, something just wasn't working for me. And so I thought, maybe I can just change it. I didn't want to draw the kids in the train all the time, because at that time I didn't know how to draw backgrounds yet. I hadn't started my career as a background artist for cartoons. So I wanted something a little simpler where I could maybe just draw trees and stuff in the background. And so I drew the book, instead of them being on a train, I just had them riding their bikes and meeting. At that time, they met the bear in this comic. And then it was only about 70 pages long. My agent then sent that around to different publishers, and First Second picked it up and said, hey, if you can expand this to be a full graphic novel, we'll buy this and make it in color. And so that was sort of how it got started.
Interesting. And when they said full graphic novel, that was like 160, 180 pages, or was this what they had in mind?
They originally said, if you can make it 190 pages, we've got a deal. So I sent them a sort of a pitch, which I have the images for, but I'm not able to share my screen, unfortunately. Um, I sent them basically like I took the beginning of the story and the end of the story, and I tried as best as I could to keep that exactly the same, and just sort of expand their adventure. So instead of it ending very quickly, they kind of go through all these turns, these twists and turns, and meet all these different characters along the way. Um, that I I didn't expect it to be this long. It actually came out to like 380 pages,
Okay.
and then I went back and edited about 50 of them out. So yeah, they definitely weren't expecting this, but they were totally cool with it, which is one of the great things about working with them. They're kind of just like, hey, do whatever you want. We trust you. You know, this is your book. You make it however you want. I mean, if
Mm.
something's totally not working, they'll let me know, but otherwise they're pretty hands off about it.
Yeah. The pitch. I mean, so you say it grew to up to 380 pages. I'm assuming that you didn't have 380 pages of layout in the pitch, right?
Yeah, no, I just did like a 1 page of just sketches, um, just real quick sketches, sort of showing a couple of different scenes. Like, okay, and then maybe this could happen. And, a lot of that ended up changing. It was more they just wanted to see like, is this something that you could expand? And so I think just me showing that, yeah, you know, you can basically take the middle and just blow the whole thing open and make it as big as you want it to be. Um, Once they saw that, they realized, yeah, this will work. Go for it. Let's see what you can do.
And so I guess what I'm trying to get at with this is at what point did you realize it was 380 pages? Was it were you had you started work on the actual pages of the book at that point yet, or was this all still in the the kind of the pre-drawing stage?
You're breaking up really bad. I'm getting little bits and pieces of what you're saying.
Yeah, no problems. I can ask that question again. The question is at what point in the stage did you realize it was going to be a 380 page book?
Oh,
Had you started drawing it at that point, or were you still
yeah,
scripting it out?
I had started drawing it, but when I draw comics, now I'm a little bit better at this because I've drawn enough to get some practice. But when I first started, when I did this book, I'd only done, I think, maybe about 100 pages of comics total, from my web comics. So I still really struggled with page layout big time.
Mm-hmm.
So when I write my comics, first I write a script. I always just write a script, just text. And then what I do is I do this, and I hope you'll be able to see this
Yep, can
on
see
here.
that. Yep.
Um, so I just draw panel by panel the whole story once I've got the script done. So I'm not dealing with any page layout. I just draw a square, and then I draw the picture in there, and then I draw the next one. And so here's where the panels are. But I have no idea how many pages this is going to take up. You know, I mean, I'm writing the dialogue over here and here. Once I put this into a page, I might find that, oh, I needed an extra panel there, or yeah, these words are going to take up way more space than I thought they would.
Sure.
So all these panels have to go on another page. So like this is not 1 page of comics. This might be 4 pages. It might be 6 pages. I have no idea when I'm doing it. So it's not until I've gone through all this, then I start trying to piece it together in a layout. That's when I realize how many pages that's going to take. So it was quite a ways into it before I realized that.
That's neat.
It,
I always say on the show that we've interviewed. I think if I'm doing my math right, you're cartoonist 97 or 98. We've done a lot of interviews with people, and no two people work the same way. it's kind of amazing. I have
Sorry,
not.
Brian, you're breaking up really bad again.
Oh well, it's your internet connection, unfortunately. Um, our side's all good. So what I was saying is that I've interviewed a lot of creators over the years, and nobody
Hmm.
works the same way. You're the almost the 100th creator I've spoken to, but I've never seen anyone literally do it the way that you're doing it. That to me is utterly fascinating. If I understand your process correctly, you're writing a script, then you're doing panels with the script,
Hmm.
then you break down the pages. So you've got like kind of an extra step in there. Is that what I'm understanding?
Can you say that last part again?
So traditionally, I think most creators are doing a script and then they
Right.
do their breakdowns. So you're inserting an extra step in the middle where you're thinking about the drawing rather than the page. Yeah?
Yeah, I'm not thinking about the page at all.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not thinking about page turns or anything like making sure that I hit some special thing at the end of a page when I'm doing this stage. It's once I've got this, then I'll start thinking about that. When I've got all my panels that are just squares, um, then I'll start putting them into the pages and thinking, okay, so this panel needs to be on a page turn. So how can I get this to be on a page turn? Where can I kind of move the other panels around? So it's um, for me, it's a great way to work because it frees me up when I'm writing it at the beginning because I don't have to think at all about, okay, here's panel one. Like when I'm writing a script, I'm not thinking about the panels, even not just the pages. I'm not even thinking about the panels. I just have I'm just writing it like a movie script. Then I'll go in and start thinking about, okay, I can take this part of the script and how many panels is it going to take to kind of get that, those couple sentences. Can I do it in one, or is it going to take me three or four? It's completely open.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I love this. Like I said, I've never heard of anyone working this way. And one of the things that people often tell us is, that they're sort of halfway through the project, and not that they get bored with it, but that they're just doing mechanical work in the penciling and the inking because they've already put all the thought into it ahead of time. And
Hmm.
I love the fact that you found a way to make that process just as fresh as the writing process. You didn't hear that at all. It broke up. The way you're smiling. Yeah.
You there?
Yeah, I am here. I'm here.
One sec.
Well, he can't hear you say 1 sec, Jordan, so.
One sec. I need to switch over to my mic for a moment.
All right.
Give me 1 second.
Are the technical difficulties on our side? No.
Might be. I'm gonna switch the batteries out of your mic. Just we'll see.
Oh my.
Hey, Ryan,
Ooh.
give me 1 second.
Yeah.
I'm gonna switch over to a different. I'm just gonna do a quick little thing.
Okay.
Okay.
Da-da. Well, I can keep talking at least. This is a fantastic book. For those of you at home, and if we have anybody who's on the internet, who's watching us on the live stream, if you have questions for Ryan, please submit them, and we will get them asked.
Okay. Can you hear me, Ryan?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
Great. Okay. Give me a second.
Okay. All right. So
Do the thing.
we've switched batteries, so maybe it was a battery issue. I don't know.
I can hear you perfectly now.
Great. Okay, that's good. That's what we want to have.
I want to hear your questions. You're asking such great questions. I don't usually get to talk shop like this.
Yeah. Well, that's part of the fun of this is that. Um, so you have a script. You've broken down the pages, and the book has grown to be 380 pages long. What has your editor say to this? Right, because they contracted you in their heads at least for a 200-page book, and you've swollen it to twice the size. That's not. I'm not criticizing. I think that's fantastic. Did they have any hesitation at that point?
Yeah, you're breaking up again. Are you asking me if they were hesitant to
Yes.
allow me to do the length
Yes. Correct.
that I ended up doing?
Correct.
No, they they were very encouraging about it. Basically, just hey, the longer you can make it, like the better. I think there's something about the having a good hefty book. So I think that they were excited about that, but having taking up a lot of space on the shelf, if anything, but also just. I think they were also excited about me being excited about telling this story. Like I went far beyond what they were expecting because I couldn't cut anything out of it. Like I kept trying to make it shorter because I was a little bit concerned at first, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized that this is the way I wanted to tell it. And so yeah, I was pretty lucky that they were totally on board with it.
You said that they liked that the book expanded.
Yeah.
I saw a blog post from you on Tumblr, I believe it was. I think you had just signed the contract, and you posted about doing the book, and you said, "Oh, it's going to be out in 2016," and of course, it didn't come out until 2019. I'm assuming that is a function of just you realizing the book is twice as long as you thought it was.
Yeah, there was a lot there. My daughter was born in 2014, and that pretty much changed everything.
Absolutely.
And then my son was born in 2016, so that just sort of amplified my lack of time to work on this. So, I don't want to say it was my kid's fault. I worked on this pretty hard, but there were times where I had to take a break from it. There were times where I took months away from it, whether that be because I had to work on other stuff. Suddenly, I had two kids who were relying on me for food, and so I wasn't able to just say no. I don't care. I'll eat instant ramen every day. I gotta get this done. I couldn't do that anymore. So I had to take on more freelance work and sort of chip away at this. And then whenever I had, no, gaps in my freelance work, then I could really just power through on it for, 8-9 hours a day. But yeah, that's about right. Yeah, I had to keep telling people, okay, I think it's going to be around 2017. Okay, look for it in 2018. And then finally we were able to nail down the 2019 official release date. By the time I was like, okay, I've only got a few pages left to color now, we can go ahead and confidently say 2019.
Yeah, oh, that's cool. The you do a lot of world building in here, between the Fisher Bear and Madame Majestic. I always blank on names when I do these things. Where did some of these ideas come from?
Okay, so the Fisher Bear comes almost is the most directly taken from that old story that I told you about, the Night on the Galactic Railroad. In that story, this guy comes on this train, and he's carrying these big sacks on his back, and the kids on the train are asking him what's in there, and he opens it up, and it's these bird-shaped cakes. It's a really weird story. He then tells them, "Hey, I catch these birds out of the sky and I turn them into cakes." And then they see him go off onto this hill and catch the birds and put them in his bag, and disappear into the cosmos. Um, that was the scene that I was originally going to redo. But then when I put them on bikes, it just felt weird for them to run into this old guy in the middle of the road and be like, "Hey, hop on our bikes, old man." So that's one of the reasons why I turned him. I thought, well, what can I do to make him seem, completely innocent and friendly, and like not like, hey, maybe this guy's sinister. So I turned him into this big cuddly bear character. So that's where he came from. As far as his history and stuff, yeah, I don't know. It just sort of came out that way. I know that's not really a very good answer.
No, that's a fine answer. I mean, sometimes these things you don't know where they come from. Sometimes,
Yeah, that's pretty much the way it was with Madame Majestic as well. It started out that I didn't take from the original story, but yeah, that sort of started out as one thing, and then after working on it for years, drawing it again and again and again and again, drawing that scene, drawing that character, just sort of she started to emerge as who she is in the book. I can't really think of something that really that I drew inspiration from. Although while I was working on it, have you seen Spirited Away?
Sure, of course.
So some people mentioned that she reminded them of, I can't remember her name, but the head witch.
Sure.
Which I guess I see that maybe I could have gotten the inspiration for that. Personality wise and looks wise, I don't know that I really agree with that, but yeah, I could see. I mean, I love that movie, so I'm sure I pulled stuff from a number of Miyazaki films in this book because it was a part of my childhood.
Yeah. I mean, I really feel like you have a cosmological sense here that you've built your own universe very successfully here, and the pieces kind of work together and make sense. Was that a thing that you were doing consciously, or did it just come together, or?
No, it totally came together by chance. And there's actually one thing that I ended up taking out of the book that it's very complicated, and it would take a long time to explain. But it has to do with the constellations that are rising and falling during the equinox.
Mm-hmm.
I'll see if I can say it real quick. So there's a part in the story where the kids talk about their legend, the town legend, and at the end of the legend, the lantern maker's daughter, she's holding the lantern and she dives into the sea or into the river, and presumably drowns in the river. Hopefully without spoiling anything. During the autumn equinox, the Virgo constellation, the Virgo being a woman that is falling into the sea, happens to be the constellation that is falling into the sea at the sunset. So as though she's holding the Virgo constellation is the girl in the legend who's holding the lantern, but instead it's the Virgo constellation with the sun. And then on the other end of the sky, the Pisces fish constellation is going up into the night sky.
Yeah.
And I did not plan that at all, but it just happened to work with the book. And I had put it into the story, but it became really complicated to explain it in the comic, so I had to cut the part out.
Sure. So this is interesting. The sort of the editing process of, especially with the 3-step process you're using: script, panel, page, um, what's your editing process like there? Is it because it seems to me that you're probably going to end up throwing away chunks and expanding things that you didn't know. Like once you hit the page, right, the actual layout, that changes everything, doesn't it?
Yeah, I went back and looked at a scene that I was gonna show if I could have shared my screen, but it's okay. But I went back and looked at the script that I had made for that scene, and it's so completely different that it wouldn't even make sense to show it.
Mm.
Like it changes so much from the script to then this part. So then when I do the actual roughs, and then again, usually it doesn't change once I'm at this. So once I go to my finals, which I just draw them in pencil, I don't use ink.
Okay.
So this is all kind of messy pencil, which I do on purpose because I don't want it to look. If I did it in ink and I really tried to make it look really nice, it would everything would end up really stiff. I feel like it would take all the life out of it for me. I'm not an inker, so I just do it in pencil. Once I'm at this stage, it doesn't really change, but the dialogue I still haven't written.
Yeah.
So the dialogue could still change once I go through and read it again. I feel like, this isn't really working. I can still sort of play around with that, but the drawings are pretty much set. I don't really go back unless I feel like something's really not working, because I don't want to have to draw the whole page again.
Sure. The I'm curious though, because you say that the panels are not set in terms of script, but you've laid out the balloons and the amount of space that.
Oh, I'm sorry. At this point,
Yeah.
I have the script. Like when I print my rough, so I draw a rough in Photoshop and I just type out the text.
Yeah.
So the text is already in there so that I know how
Okay.
much space to take up. I'm not that good.
Okay, I was just making sure I understood what the process there was, because it's like, well, that seems a little bold to leave a big balloon that maybe you don't have enough space to fill,
Although I did later on, I started just not drawing the balloons at all.
Yeah.
So that I could very easily, I would just draw them in Photoshop instead. Because there were a couple times where I would cut a balloon out, but then I'd have this empty space where I'd have to then go in and draw it in Photoshop and try and make it look like the pencil, which takes a lot longer than just probably redrawing the panel would have been easier.
Sure. I'm also totally amazed that that's all pencil, because I would not have guessed that just looking at it through the screen. I'm sure if I had the page in my hand, I would see that it's all pencil, but it kind of looks inked over the video quality.
Oh yeah.
The amount of texture that's in there is a ton. I mean, you're almost spotting blacks. It looks like with your pencil, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. It took a lot of time. It's definitely, because if you're doing big spot blacks and you have a nice big brush, you can do it a lot faster. But with the way I was doing it, I wasn't doing like the way you would normally fill in a big area like this. I would do these little tiny swirls, and it would take forever. So all the skies were done with just these little swirlies. I would just sort of go into a trance and just kind of go like this. And whenever I felt like maybe a star might look good here, just sort of draw a bigger swirl and then go back into the little tighter swirls.
Wow. No, that impresses me. I'm kind of stunned.
One of the things I really wanted to do is I wanted to make, and there were definitely days where I didn't do this because I was just like, I just need to get this page done. But for the most part, that's pretty much how I did it. In particular with the skies, because I wanted the skies to have a very distinct look. And then the other thing was I wanted each page to look like a finished piece and not look like, oh, this part you can tell he rushed it. Because one of the reasons that I draw on paper is not only because I don't want to look at a computer screen all day, but also because, like we talked about earlier, comics just, for me, I don't work fast enough for it to make me enough money to make a living.
Hmm.
So I sell my original pages.
Right.
And so I really want each page to look really nice.
Sure. Sure. I just, when I think about some of these scenes, like the scenes that are in the cavern, where it's all black in black, and then there's black silhouettes, I can't even imagine how long that must have taken doing it the fashion you're describing.
Yeah, my hand hurt pretty much all the time.
Yeah. What? Not that I'm an artist that this necessarily means a lot to me, but what kind of pencils are you using to do this?
Oh, I should have. They're way on the other side of the house. Um, they are Mitsubishi. They're just pencils that they sell at the grocery store.
Okay.
They're Mitsubishi Uni, I think is what it is.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure you can get them over there. I typically I started out using the darkest one because I don't know, I guess because I was thinking about ink and so I wanted the pencil to also be really dark. Also, I didn't want it to be really shiny. You know, if you draw on the same spot with a pencil and then you kind of go like
Yeah, yeah.
this and you'll get that sheen across it. And I wanted to avoid that. Um, so I was using an 8B, but I was struggling with it because I was having to sharpen it like every 20 seconds because it was so soft. So I went down to about like a 4B, I think, in the end, and that I used just a 4B pencil for the whole thing.
Wow. How many pencils would you estimate you went through to?
At least 100.
Wow.
And I got an extender because I was just throwing, otherwise I would have been throwing away, the equivalent of probably 50 pencils because
Sure.
once they got to be about that length,
Yeah, it's very difficult to draw with them. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I got an extender for them, so I really used them until they were just down to little nubs.
Oh, that's super cool. I'm assuming then that after you have your penciled page, you then scan it into the computer, and you're adding your lettering as a computer lettering. Is that
Yeah, I
is my
do.
my eye match that?
I'm hand lettering it, but I'm drawing it on the computer. So I'm drawing it on a big tablet that I use for all my work stuff.
Oh, that's interesting. So you've scanned in the pencil. You're kind
Mhm.
of blowing it up, or are you working at the same size as your original art?
For the text, yeah, you have to blow it up. So the page is 400 dpi, but then the text has to be 1200 dpi.
Mm-hmm.
So it got to be huge because they want it to be nice and crisp
Yeah.
so that it's easy to read. But yeah, so I'm just using the pencil tool in Photoshop to just get a hard pixel edge
Uh-huh.
and just writing it the same as I would by hand, but I'm doing it on the computer, which is nice because I can very easily move stuff around if I need to.
Yeah. Your lettering is amazingly consistent for being hand lettered.
That took a lot of practice.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, especially when you compare it to the art. It's interesting because I would have sworn this was a font. A font
Yeah,
based on your handwriting, but I would have sworn it was a font.
yeah. I kind of wish that I had done it in the text in pencil as well, so that it matched the lines.
Mm,
But they have a specific way that they want you to do it so that it comes out printing out really nice in the book.
sure.
Otherwise, there's a possibility of it just being a little bit blurry.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
You
no,
know.
makes sense. Makes sense. And then you're doing your own coloring, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Real quick, if you don't mind, I did prepare. I don't have anything for the color because I do have the book right here, but just so I could give. I don't know if this is interesting, but this is what my roughs look like. So I draw. I have my sketches from here,
Yeah.
but then when I draw my roughs, I do them. I keep them pretty rough.
Mm-hmm.
So like here's a scene that in the back there's gonna be trees, but I really don't want to make it to where when I do the final on this, I'm just tracing.
Yeah.
I want to I I want to try and keep it fresh. One, because I want to be able to give it energy when I'm drawing it, but also because it would just bore me to tears if I just had to draw this 2 times. So this is what my rough looks like, and I'll try and hold it steady so it's not blurry on the
Yep.
on the.
Yep.
But
Looks great.
then when I go to final,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's like that. So when I'm working on the final, I'm still kind of figuring it out. I haven't completely figured it out in the rough. It's still so I use a light box to trace that
Okay.
onto watercolor paper when I'm doing my finals. So that's just to give an idea of what the process looks like.
Yeah. This seems like a really labor-intensive way to make art, if you ask me.
It actually wasn't that bad. I mean, this page, probably a page this size, which by the way, I don't, it's just the size of the book compared to
Yep.
the size of the
Yep.
picture. So I'm not working gigantic.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know a lot of American comics, they tend to draw on these,
Yeah. It's typically
especially
2 up.
superhero
Yeah.
comics.
It's typically twice the size. Typically.
Um, so it's not a huge. I'm not drawing gigantic, so it's not
Mm-hmm.
taking that long. I think this one might have taken about 3 or 4 hours.
Okay.
So it's not too bad.
So when
But
things are cooking and you're producing, are you doing 2 or 3 pages a day?
yeah, I was able to draw about 2 or 3 a day, depending on the complexity.
Sure.
For a page like this one that I just showed with the trees and the bear, that one was like once I'm done with that one, I think I'm just kind of done for the day.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. How did the work change, or did it change once you had kids? And I mean, I assume it's some part of your head at the back, at least, is thinking, my kids will read this one day. Right?
I hope.
Yeah.
Um, no, it didn't really, because by the time my daughter was born, I had pretty much written it. Um, I think it's all kind of a blur now.
Sure. Sure.
I don't remember it dramatically changing as like oh, my kids are gonna read this one day. Except for maybe I want to make sure this is good.
Right.
You know, that was about it. I just
Okay.
want to make sure it's good so that when they do read it, they're not like, "Ooh, Dad,
Well, I don't think that's something you're going to have to
what were
worry
you
about.
thinking?"
Yeah, no, that's not something you're going to have to worry about. This is a fantastic book. I mean, it really is. I was saying it when just when you weren't on screen before that there's a level to the world building and the creativity here that it makes me think of, say, A Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. That this could become kind of a staple of kids lit, I think, if it gets out to the right people, and because it's just really well thought out and beautiful, and I love it. I love this book a lot. I really do. And while I don't have any other kids here in the background to agree with me, multiple kids have come up to me and said, "Oh, that was a really, really good one, Brian." So,
Oh, good.
yeah. So, yeah, this is a fantastic book. What's next for you? What do you have? Do you have something else planned?
I do. I have a rough story that right now it's not really like this is a middle grade story. The next one I'm working on would probably be more YA, I think,
Okay.
a little bit older. Um, but it's still sort of in the very, very rough stages.
Okay.
I wish I could say like while this was going to print and everything in the year that it took for this to become a book after I'd finished drawing it, that I'd been, working away at my next story. But unfortunately, I just haven't been able to at the pace that I would like to.
Sure.
So hopefully it won't be another 5 years.
Right.
I'm coming up on a sort of a lull in my freelance work in the next couple of months. So hopefully I'll be able to get quite a bit done on it and start submitting it, hopefully to First Second again, but we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wish I could tell you more about it, but it's still.
Oh, sure. Yeah. No, I mean, if it's not
sort
there,
of a
it's not
myth.
there. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about Benjamin and Nathaniel? Where did they come from? Because I mean, that's that. When I said earlier that it feels like it was very specific, something to your childhood, maybe. I just because the characters feel fairly real.
That's a good question. I think one of the I'm reminded of myself in Ben because of his sort of his desire to hang out with who he thinks are the cool kids.
Right.
I remember when I moved to the Bay Area when I was a kid, suddenly I was in this new environment and I needed to be the cool kid because I didn't want to be the nerdy kid, even though I was. And I think that move affected me in that way, sort of pushed me away from the academic Ryan and more into the I gotta be cool because I want to have friends.
Right.
I feel like that's kind of where he came from. As far as Nathaniel, I don't know. Nathaniel, I don't have. Maybe Nathaniel is more the kid that I, looking back, wish that maybe I could have been. More
Yeah.
true to my, not worrying about what anyone else thinks.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also wonder, Nathaniel's a person of color. Was that, otherwise it's a fairly white book. Was it intentional on your part, or was that just happenstance?
Okay, you know what? Actually, when you asked me if my having kids changed anything about this book,
Yeah.
looking back on it, yeah, that is the thing that changed my view on sort of who the character should be. My kids are half Japanese.
Yeah.
And I wanted. Originally, Nathaniel was a blonde-haired kid, and I wanted someone in my book to represent a person of color, and I wanted it to be a main character, somebody who was very important in the story. So yeah, that was definitely you have to forgive me. It is 3 a.m.
Yeah.
Also, I didn't mention this, but I'm forgetting English, and it's kind of embarrassing. I don't speak English anymore.
No, I understand.
Except to a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've definitely forgotten English in the 9 years that I've been here. It was what you said, a decision that I made purposefully. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Yeah. No, I like that. I like that. I like that. Well, I think that's all my questions. I think, and normally I would turn to the kids and go, "Do you have any questions?" No, but there's no kids here, so.
I'm sure they would have wonderful questions.
Oh, they would. They would have all kinds of. It would be like, well, but why did this happen on page number 207? And you'd be like, I don't know.
Yeah, I was looking forward to that, but at the same time, I was kind of dreading that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
half relieved, half kind of,
Yeah. We talk about craft a lot. Again, this is a really fantastic book, and Ryan, I really wanna thank you for making it. I do. Um, uh, it's great that we're in a world now where comics are being made for middle readers, and in a way that respects their intelligence and respects their imagination. And I feel like you really did that here, and so congratulations to you. Good job, my friend.
thank you, Brian.
Yeah,
That means a lot.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. No, I really like it a lot, and I want to thank you for staying up late and talking to us even through the technical difficulties and all.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah.
Yeah, anytime.
Okay. All right. Well, tomorrow then
Maybe.
we'll do it again. No.
Yeah.
I can't
Let's
wait to
talk-
see what else you come up with, my friend. And at any point if you're in America, we would love to have you in for a physical signing and just to shake your hand for creating such a good book. If you're sitting at home and you've been watching this, and thank you if you have been, but go out and get a copy of This Is Our Pact. This is such a strong, smart book. It's a good long read. You're going to be very happy with it. It's a great summer read too, I think. And I want to just very quickly say before I say goodbye, next month's book will be Cheshire Crossing, which is by Andy Weir and Sarah Anderson. Andy Weir wrote The Martian, for those of you who know what that science book is. And Sarah Anderson does a comic strip called Sarah's Scribbles, which is very funny and very good. And they did this amazing, great story about Alice in Wonderland and Dorothy of Oz, and I can't remember who the third. Oh, and Wendy from Neverland, about all coming together, and it's really fun, and that's going to be next month. That'll be August 18th is the day that we're doing that. And that's they'll be here live in studio too, so we won't have the technical problems, I hope. Again, this was our pack with our book this month. Last time I want to thank you, Ryan, for coming out and doing this.
You're welcome.
Yep. And
Thank you.
we'll see everybody next month. Okay? Thanks very much.